No worries. Get that done. All right, that's recording now. So, all right. So obviously you guys are down the path of some sort of level of interest across a PPM tool, and was handed over to you to be running with. So what we just wanted to do today was run through an end-to-end what good looks like out of Daptiv, but understand that Daptiv is very flexible and scalable in how it appears, the functionality that you use. So things can be turned off when you're not ready. If the organisation from a maturity point of view isn't ready to, digest that sort of thing, we'll have it turned off and then work with you over the coming months and years, certainly, to help continually bring out that capability. So you've got a forever evolving tool set that keeps growing with you as the organisation matures.
Sure.
So the main thing there is to understand that what we do show you, you're obviously not going to use everything from day one. It's a case of understanding what are perhaps the critical must-start areas, and everything else can be configured and hidden and all that accordingly. So, but if there's any areas that you see that you particularly do want to dive a little bit deeper into, certainly do that. But at least after this, you'll have a very good benchmark as to understanding, what it does, how it operates, and how it all looks and feels, for some of the different roles that might interact with it.
Yep, that sounds good.
All right, cool. Well, we'll throw it over to Alex. So sorry, we've got Alex position over in New Zealand. We've also got Alex Talia on the line, so he's from ChangePoint and is our senior solutions consultant. So going to be running through from a pre-sales point of view, working through the demo today, and if we go down any configuration or trial or anything like that, then Alex is going to be heavily involved from that point. All right.
Okay. That's good.
Over to you, Alex.
Okay. Hey, Paul. How's it going? Alex, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Good, thanks, mate.
All right. Well, thanks for the opportunity today. So, as Mark said, we'll just do a high-level end-to-end demo and see how we go from there. Feel free to stop me and ask any questions along the way. As he said, if there's any areas that you have that are of interest or you want to delve into a bit more information. So now Daptiv isn't a full end-to-end project and portfolio management solution. It's completely cloud-based, SaaS-based, so it's accessible from any of the major web browsers, as well as mobile phones and tablets and so forth through that browser interface.
Mm-hmm.
So what we'll do? Sorry, was there a question?
No, I was just giving you some feedback.
So what we'll do is, we'll cover the end-to-end. So we'll start with the more portfolio side of things, and we'll talk about demand capture and ideation and so forth, and taking that through a workflow and a process to turn that into a project, and just keep going down the day-to-day project management, and then at the end discuss a bit around dashboarding and reporting and how we get the relevant information out of Daptiv. So is that all right with you? Is that a good flow for you today?
Yep, that sounds good.
So just a little bit of navigation around the tool. Across the blue strip here in the top, you'll see some areas. You'll see portfolio, projects. Can you see this okay? Do I need to increase the font?
No, that's good.
All right, there.
Yep.
Excellent. So you'll see portfolio, projects, requests. Those are really our what we call our global tabs. So it's global views of specific information, mostly centering around functionality. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'm actually logged in as an administrator, so I have access to everything. So if I click on this More tab here, I'll get the drop down, and I have full access to everything in the solution. Now, Daptiv itself is a role-based solution, so I'm going to quickly click on this little person icon in the top right-hand corner, and I'm going to impersonate just a normal user. I'm going to impersonate Anna, who's an analyst. And what's going to happen now as an admin, once I impersonate her, I get to see what she sees when she interacts with So now we have the impersonate user screen. You'll see the yellow strip across the top telling me that I'm impersonating Anna. And now you'll see that across the blue strip, Anna is restricted into how she can interact with the solution. So she's basically an analyst. She works on her projects and her tasks, and you can see obviously her default page will be her timesheets. So she's gonna want to go and log in time against all that work that she's doing. She also has a calendar if she wants to get a larger view of the things that may be coming up in the future. She's got the discussions tab, which is any discussions that she may be a part of. She's got her dashboard, so maybe something that's been configured for her centrally by the PMO, or something that maybe she configured herself. So you can see this is more of not really a graphical dashboard, more of a tabular dashboard where she's got her assignments, her notifications, and you can see that it's actually telling her that myself, Patrick Mann, who I'm logged in as, has impersonated her. So it's also giving her that heads up that someone has impersonated her role, etc. So that's a bit of notifications, and then she's got any tasks that she may be working on. So the solution itself is user-based, it's role-based. So I'm going to stop impersonating Anna, but you can see that we can restrict functionality and access to certain areas of the solution. So not only functional areas that you see across the top there in that blue strip, but we can also restrict project access and even down to artifact and document access, etc. So there may be individuals within an organization working on projects that you don't want to see any financial information. Well, we can completely hide all the financial applications, so those people will see everything but the financial applications, etc. So starting from the request tab here at the top, this is in Daptiv where we can capture ideas and requests to the business, whether it's project requests or whatever it may be. This is where we capture and store that information. So in the request scorecard that you're seeing here, now Daptiv itself is actually quite strong in reporting. So I guess you can say our first level of reporting is what we call views. So any of this global information that you have access to, you can see in this request section, I have the ability to create more views. So clicking on more views, I can see all the views that are configured, plus I have the ability to edit and create new views. So I can take this global set of information and I can slice and dice it however I see fit. Now this can be done obviously centrally from maybe a PMO admin office who can specify who can see what and create all those views, or you can let obviously project managers and other users create their own views depending on their requirements. But you can take any bit of information in Daptiv and slice it and dice it different ways. So we may have a very large intake process. If you're multinational or something like that, you may want to you may want to split this intake up by geographic location or by business unit, etc. And in which case, we can customize those views for the relevant stakeholders. Now, one thing you'll notice, so Daptiv itself, when we implement Daptiv, comes with what we call a best practice accelerator template. So what you'll notice on the screen is that out of the box, we provide some scoring mechanisms. So we provide a risk score, a size score, a benefit score, and then an overall score. Like almost everything in Daptiv, it's completely configurable. So if you have your own scoring methodologies, etc., we can of course bring that into the solution to represent your business model and your processes more accurately. Once we have these requests scored here, so if I go and click on new request just underneath the Daptiv logo, that allows me to configure a new request, to submit a new request. Now also, this part of the solution can also be set up as a web form. So that way, anyone in the organization can submit a request, not necessarily just Daptiv users. And that way they can request projects and whatever else needs to be requested, even though they may not have direct access to Daptiv itself. So you'll see we have just some simple request types here configured. Again, completely configurable. mimic your processes and your projects and whatever kind of work you may do, and there's really no limitation on the type of requests you can have within Daptiv.
Yep.
Once I have those requests here in the solution, I can see that I have pending requests and I have an approved request. With these requests, now that I have approved request down at the bottom, I can click on this actions button. So once a request, oh, excuse me, there you go, admin. I think, is everyone still there?
I'm still here.
Yep. Okay. Excellent. All right. There we go. I'm back in. Sorry, I just got kicked out for a second. I think maybe my wireless dropped out. Once I have these requests in here, if it's an approved request, from the actions button, I can go ahead and generate a workspace. And what that will do is that will create a project from this approved request, and all of the pre-project information will be brought across to a live project. Anything that's still pending, I can build out the business case here. So clicking on the actions button, I can add some high-level resource requirements. So this is just your role-based high-level estimates. So, we have a developer and a finance person. If I need to, I can add an analyst or any one of our other high-level roles just as estimates to this project. And what that actually does is you'll see as we move on through this workflow, it actually provides information for our next step in this process, which is the capacity planning. So we have all our projects in here. We have all of our pipeline demand, or whatever they may be, ideas, projects, etc. We have them prioritized by some sort of mechanism. And now if we jump over to this capacity planner, what that lets us do is that lets us view all of these request pipeline projects. You can see here up at the top, these are all what we call unplanned projects here, and everything is in that request date. And that's overlaid on top of our planned work here. So all of the projects we have in progress. And down at the very bottom of the screen, you will see all of the different resources we have, resource types we have in our organization, and the aggregate demand of those roles in hours. Now we can do this, we can show this in costs, for example, by month or by week. And we can also show this if you wanted to set it up in FTEs. So looking at this right now, if I was to bring on all of these projects here with everything I have in flight, you can see that there is some red here at the bottom, and I would have some resource bottlenecks that I need to maneuver around. Excuse me. So looking at this, one thing we can see is that the overall score from the ideas get brought across, and they get stacked ranked from highest to lowest. So you can see your higher priority projects over your lower ones. Now I'm looking at this REST encryption project, and I can open up this REST encryption project and get a bit more detail on the actual roles required. And the reason I chose this project is because it's got a fairly large, if you look at this resource demand, it's got a fairly heavy resource requirement, but it's got the lowest priority score. So I'm guessing if we were to remove any project or any idea and request from this pipeline, it would most likely be this one. So one thing I can do is exactly that. I can click on the actions button and I can remove it. I can toggle the net availability off. And that will take it, it'll gray out all the figures and it'll take it out of the calculation. And you can see now at the bottom, all of those deficits we have gone away. So just by simply removing this project, I'm able to bring on the rest of those requests without any resource issues. Now, if this was some sort of compliance project, a must-do project, there's other things we can do with this capacity planning. We can start to move things around. So we can either move out individual roles. In this case, I clicked on the engineering role, and I can move that role forward and backwards in time just to see how that affects my availability at the bottom. Or I can do it with the entire project. So I can, let's say, move this whole project out to October and see how that affects my my resources and where I will still have some sort of resource capacity issues. And I can see that's cleared up most things except maybe in February of next year, we're going to have some issues that we're going to need to work around. So it kind of lets you play with these scenarios a little bit, kind of move things around and see, if you can bring all of these projects on board, what is the best sequence to actually bring them on board to have minimal resource effect? Or second, if you can't find an efficient way to onboard all of these requests, then it gives you a very compelling case to go to senior management and say, look, we need to hire some more analysts, or we need to hire some more developers. Otherwise, there's just no way we can do this. So it's a very, very good enterprise level planning tool to really let you know where you stand in terms of your resource capacity.
Are you able to see that view from a team and resource perspective?
You can. Now, this is just at the enterprise level planning when you're doing your portfolio planning. However, when you're doing your resource management and so forth, you can see that view. So, for example, if I click on the Team Manager tab here, I'm just going to leave this page and I'm going to go to the Team Manager tab. That's where resource managers manage their resource pools. So you get that view of your team. So I can see I have no pending resource requests, but I can view my team here at the bottom, and I can see how many hours they currently have available. So everyone seems pretty freed up. I can filter this by the type of role. So if I have a very large resource pool and I've gotten a request for a DBA, instead of searching through all those names, I can just filter by DBAs. And then there we go. I have the 2 DBAs that are in my resource pool, and I can get that visibility into what their availability is. We also have this visibility at the project level when you're inside a project workspace, and you're a project manager and you're looking to either put resources to tasks or maybe build out your resource plan. We have that visibility as well. And I'll show you that in just a little bit. But any questions on that resource plan? All good? The capacity planner?
No, it looks good.
Okay.
We tend at an enterprise level, we tend to look at a lot of our stuff by team and by individual people rather than necessarily by project.
Okay.
That's
yep.
fine.
All right.
That's fine.
No, that's fine.
It might just be that we haven't had the tools.
Yeah, no, look, again, this is just a planning tool for when you're actually building out, when you're doing your portfolio planning for the year or however you guys do it. It's just to get an idea of, look, we want to do these 6 initiatives this year. This is our goal. Now, how do we stand from a capacity standpoint?
I'll stop you there for a second. So we're a service provider. So in many respects, we're constrained by what our customer wants to do in terms of time frame and which proposals we win and which ones we don't. So while we may pencil things in, until we win it, we can't book it, and then we're still constrained by when the customer wants to do it, more so than when we are able to plan stuff. Ideally, we'd like to get there, but we don't always have that flexibility.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, that's understandable. So yeah, you definitely have a much different scoring mechanism than what we're showing here then. But again, that's just a process that we can fine tune, hopefully, to help you guys out in the way you guys run your business. Sure. But again, that's a very request driven workflow that not all organizations go through. Other ways to get projects into Daptiv, if you don't want to go through that formal workflow, is just directly from templates, which is obviously for compliance reason what we recommend. So in Daptiv, you have the ability to configure and store as many templates as you need to represent the different types of work that you do. So you may have projects and so forth that you do that are very similar, you do very frequently. We can template those projects, and then all the project managers have to do is come here and say, well, I need a fairly large project. I'm going to use this high rigor plan, which is for a large IT project, and they can create the workspace directly from the template. And that, of course, will be pre-populated with anything that's specified in that template. So it could be documents, it could be workflow, it could be risks and issues, some sort of high-level schedule, etc. We can go ahead and capture all of that information in Daptiv.
Can you use more than one template for a project? Can you use more than one template in a project?
How do you mean? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. So let's say we've got an implementation that involves several products that have their own way of being implemented. Can we put those together into one project?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can have, I guess, sub projects. If that would be the easiest way to do it. So yeah, you can have that one implementation as a project, and then those 6 products that go with that implementation as your sub projects. But it's strictly a 1-to-1 project to template ratio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I think using the sub projects would be the easiest way to handle that. And then, of course, going directly into the projects area of Daptiv, we can just go ahead and create a project from here directly. What you'll see here is a kind of hierarchical view of my portfolio. So I have my different programs, etc., that I'm looking at. I can open and close those. And of course, I can track whatever I want on this page. At the current view, we're looking at projects by health, which is why you're seeing so many health indicators on the screen there. But again, because this is a global tab, I can configure as many views as I want. So I can look at these projects by geographic location, by budget, however I want to slice and dice it.
Yep.
And directly from here, I can go ahead and create a workspace. Again, right under that Daptiv sign, if I say create a workspace, what you'll see with Daptiv, and this really lends, I don't know if you've read any of the analyst reports, but the usability of the solution is great because of these wizard-driven interfaces that we have for most of the configuration in Daptiv. So it's really quite intuitive, and it kind of walks you through the process. So the learning curve and the onboarding for Daptiv is really quite minimal. So I can select the type of project that I want here. Is it IT? Is it Agile? Is it some other product? Is it a new product development project, etc.? So if I click, for example, IT, which is a different template, you'll see the screen flash quickly. As it switches the template, it's going to bring across any of the configured custom fields and anything that goes around with that IT project type. Under the advanced settings, I can select where in the corporate portfolio this project is going to live. So do I want it directly under the portfolio? Do I want it in one of these programs here? Let's say I'm going to put it in the architecture program. The next tab is any custom fields that are required. You'll see that the alignment objectives here are required with the asterisk. So I can select one or more alignment objectives. Everything else is optional. I'm not going to go ahead and fill those out, but you can see, we can have drop-down menus. We can have free text fields. All kinds. There's really no limitations, and you can really customize these templates.
Quick question in here then. Where would you see the customer sitting?
The customer?
Yeah. So all of our projects are done for customers. Well, not all of them, but 95% of our projects are done for customers. So it's obviously a key way that we view our work in our projects.
Yep, so that could be just as easy as configuring a new field here called customer. So maybe instead of business unit, this would be customer. And it's quite easy to put in a new field. So you would have, instead of business unit, you'd have a customer here. And then in the views and reports, you can slice and dice the information by, so.
Okay.
Yep. And of course, there's other ways to get that kind of information into the system as well. I'll show you when we get to the project workspace. And then applications. So Daptiv is unique in the sense that we have a concept of what are called dynamic applications. So unlike some of our competitors who have kind of very rigid solutions, and they say, well, this is the way we do risks, and obviously you have to adapt to the way our software does this. We use the concept of dynamic applications. So you can see there's the risk box there checked. If you don't like our out-of-the-box risk register, you can completely edit it and configure it to specify whatever information you want to capture when you analyze risks, etc. You can change naming conventions, you can change everything that's associated with it. So we really provide that ability for customers to take parts of our solution and really customize it to match their business processes and the way they analyze things, etc. And it's really, again, it's very easy to do. If I was to jump into the admin section here in the top right-hand corner and say, edit that risk register, it would have that same wizard-driven walkthrough that we saw when we created a project that we're doing now. Everything would be wizard-driven and very, very user-friendly. And that's how I can that's how I can go ahead and create a project in the system. Very easy. Now, jumping into projects, I'm just going to go ahead and jump into a larger, more fleshed out project so we can talk about the project workspace and kind of day-to-day interaction between a project team here. Any questions so far?
No, all good.
So being basically a services organization, then I'm guessing you're gonna, you guys are gonna be heavily reliant on billing rates and billing offices and things like that. That stuff we can capture here very easily. What you're seeing now is a project workspace, and again, Daptiv really is about choice and about, we understand, project managers are different. So we do provide some choice here. What we're looking at now is the overview application, which I've just highlighted in the left-hand corner. And you can see that even these applications that we have to capture information can actually have their own views. So what we're looking at is what's called a PM dashboard. This is in beta, but this is a concept we have very similar to project on a page, where the project manager can actually specify widgets of information that they actually want to view for this project. And you can see, just snapshots of information. So right away, the first little widget here is these 36 overdue tasks. So as a project manager, that's going to really catch my attention. And I can click on that, and that will be a direct shortcut to the tasks application, which is our built-in scheduling engine. And that'll take me directly to those 36 overdue tasks and nothing else. And so now I can spend my time analyzing what's going on with these 36 overdue tasks. I can quickly jump back to these 47 tasks. So this is my full schedule, but that shortcut has taken me directly to my overdue tasks. And if I go back to the overview application, if I click on any one of these widgets and shortcuts, it'll take me directly to that area of interest. And you can see there's different views. So there's a home view, which displays the information a little bit differently. As you can see here, there's a status section. There's some milestones, etc. So just depending on the preference of the PM. There's a dashboard view. Now this separates into what's called profile and status fields. So you can see on the left-hand side is my profile section. That's got all my high-level business information. Why are we doing this project? In your case, who's the customer? Who are we doing this for, etc. And on the right-hand side, it has the most recent status update. So I can capture, the overall health. I can capture budget, resource, schedule, health, etc. And all of this is completely configurable. So you can capture whatever information you want. So your projects can be as little or as heavy-handed as you want them to be. It's just a matter of preference. And then there's also what's called a status history view in the overview application, and that gives you a full audit history of every single status update. So I can see, who updated it on what day, and I can see all of that relevant status information, and I can scroll back through history and see every single status update that's ever been done for this project. So you have that full audit tracking history for the status of this project.
Cool.
And I'll just touch on some basic applications, obviously some of the most used and needed applications. The resources application is where we have what's called our resource plan. So Daptiv is extremely strong in resource management. We support both top-down and bottom-up resource planning. And most of that interaction is done here in our resource plan. So very intuitive. You'll see when this loads up tons of information on the screen. I apologize. It seems like our internet's very slow today. It's either our internet or GoToMeeting. And I'm guessing it's GoToMeeting because there's a bit of a lag between what I see and what you see. All right, so here is our what's called our resource plan. So you can see we can have set up our high-level resource requirements, our role-based analysts, developers, etc. And underneath each area, we can go ahead and click on that plus sign, and we can request named resources or resource managers. So there's two options there. Obviously, add a resource would be selecting a named resource, maybe someone you've worked with in the past that you would prefer to work with again. And then a resource manager would just say, just click on that, show me all the resource managers that have analysts in their resource pool. In this case, there's only one, Patrick Mann. I would select him, and I would say add, and that would just request a generic analyst from Patrick Mann. So that's saying, I don't care who you give me, just give me an analyst. I need an analyst, etc. Okay. Now, what you'll notice, again, we can view this in hours, FTEs. We can view it by day, week, or month. However, the PMs prefer to do their planning. So again, we do provide that option. And then you actually have the ability to trigger what information you view. So right now, you can see for each month that we can view allocation, scheduled, and actual hours. And we can compare all of those. So if I was to actually take this and go back along this path in history, there we go. We can see now that I have not only some scheduled and allocation information, but some actual information as well. And I can do that comparison. I can also trigger other displays. So if I click on the little display button in the bottom left, I can view unsubmitted and pending hours. I can view availability for my resources. So like we talked about earlier, if we're looking to schedule people on projects, now I actually have their availability. So for example, if I was looking to extend this analyst role into the next month, I can see, who has the spare capacity and who doesn't. I can get financial information, so I can see what these resources are costing me both internally and externally, and get an idea of the margin on this. And I can do comparisons as well. So you can see I can view scheduled versus allocation. I can view actual versus scheduled hours, and I can set the thresholds for those comparisons. So we can actually have that color coded. So we can say that anything above 115%, we want it to be red. 85, we want it to be blue, and that way we get those triggers directly on the screen. We can get a good analysis of how we've been actually utilizing our resources. So quite a lot of information here that can be digested by the PMs and resource managers. The task application is the next big one, and that's really our built-in scheduling engine. So this is where we can go ahead and create the schedule. We can import from MS Project. We also have bidirectional integration with MS Project, which will allow PMs to use both simultaneously. And then, of course, like what we saw earlier, this task application also has multiple views here that we can configure. So what we're looking at now is called our task list view. It's very similar to a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. We can do our inline editing and change some of these task names. We can double click and enter not only task information, but also things we can go ahead and request resources. So I talked about the fact that we do support bottom-up resource planning. So project manager could just come here and either soft book a resource type, or they can request a specific named resource, depending on their preference. And what that'll do is once that information is entered here into the schedule, the high-level role and named user data will actually be automatically pulled into the resource plan, which saves a lot of time and effort and double handling. So that's really a task list. We also have an interactive Gantt chart. This is where, from the feedback we get, a lot of PMs like to spend most of their time, and that's for a couple of reasons. So first, there's a lot more information here. You have this nice Gantt chart view where you can analyze the progress of your tasks. You can see things like, you can see on the very top line, there's these little red folders. That's indicating that there's a cross-project dependency that's at risk. And I can double-click on those folders to get more information as to what is actually happening with that cross-project dependency, which is great. I can still split this screen here, and I can still, add my task information and so forth here, and edit this information. But I still get this nice Gantt chart view. I can view things like critical path. So if I click on these little arrows here at the top, that'll highlight the critical path red, and I'll see that highlighted in the Gantt chart. And then there's also, we have something that's very unique called resource utilization display. So if I click on this little pie chart here at the top, that will actually trigger that utilization display. So now if I click on a task, in this case, I'm going to click on task number 20, which is create preliminary designs. Now, for the time period that that task runs, you'll see a resources window in this right-hand side. And now each one of these resources will have a pie chart next to their name, indicating their current utilization for that specific time period. So I can see I have resources that are almost 100% utilized, and I probably will not be able to add to these tasks. Or I can see that also I have resources here that are sitting that are very underutilized. So if I need a developer, for example, Wendy here really has nothing on, and I can just drag and drop her over to this task, and that will add her to that task. It'll add 100% of her time to that task. I can double click on this person icon, and I can change that. So I can change Wendy from 100% to 40%, whatever she may need to be. I'm going to put 0 just to take her off this task. I'll do what I just did. But it actually gives the PM some visibility into resource availability as they're assigning them to the tasks and working that bottom-up approach. And we also have the ability here to, like we have the resources window. If I close that, we also have a baseline window, so we can go ahead and compare baselines. You can save multiple baselines here, etc. And I can see from this baseline that we are quite a bit behind schedule. So, quite a lot of information and interaction here for the PM. So we've gotten some good reviews on this, and a lot of the PMs that use our tool really like to work in this interactive Gantt chart. Now, another view we have, which is a very new view, is called the task board view. Now, this is a very Kanban-inspired view that allows teams to manage their tasks a bit better. A lot of Daptiv users are not project managers and they don't have a lot of project management experience. So this lets them really update their tasks very easily by dragging and dropping the tasks between the different phases or stages of the project, and that will go ahead and configure the workflow of that project. So what we're looking at here is a Kanban IT workflow. We have 7 industry best practice workflows out of the box that can be configured. So we have Kanban software, we have scaled agile framework, etc. Or you could just use the built-in Daptiv task statuses that you assign to your projects. In this case, we have not started, on hold, in progress. And if you click on the little information button in the top right-hand corner, that will actually show you the workflow. So if I move something from not started to in progress, it will change the percentage complete from 0 to 50%. Very simple workflow. You can request to have your own workflow put in if you choose to, but it's very simple and easy to do. And again, there's some functionality here. So if I double click on one of these little boards, I can add checklists, I can add comments, I can add documents, I can add more resources here if I want to. So it's very simplified task management for, you know, what maybe not very advanced project teams and so forth.
Yep. Cool.
All right. And then, of course, we have documents. So the documents application. So Daptiv has full document management capability, check-in, check-out, version control, etc. So again, we provide you the ability to have views. So document views. So I can see everything in a list, for example. So I can see all of my documents here. So this is just a complete checklist of all the documents stored in Daptiv, or I can have a folder view, in which case I can organize my documents in a specific way. So what we're viewing here is this is organized by the different phases of the project. So, you know, in design, you're probably looking at some sort of design doc. So if I click on that design folder, we should see some sort of spec sheet. So there's a functional spec document that's associated with that design phase that's required. We also have the concept in Daptiv of linking. So if I click on the actions button, I can actually link this document to anything else in Daptiv. If it's an existing item, or I can create a new one. So I can link it to a risk, an issue, a task, etc. And I can see here that it's already linked to something. So it's linked to I think that's a workflow step or a gate. And I can see exactly what it's linked to. So related items. So it's linked to another dynamic item, and it's linked to another spec. So that's what that specific one's linked to. And it's also linked here to a gate 3 execution. So it's a gating requirement. So during gate 3, this document's required, etc. So again, we have that functionality. Now that's just for documents that are stored in Daptiv. We also have a links document down here near the bottom, as it's in alphabetical order. And this is for anything that is external. So a lot of organizations already have their own SharePoint or some other document repository. We can go ahead and create those links to those documents. So you can see a website bookmark, and you can see a SharePoint document. And that's really easy to do. And then the rest, it's very, very simple, these dynamic applications, because they're completely configurable. So I'm just going to quickly click on the risk application and show you kind of what we have. Very simple document register. If I click add, I have all these fields that I can configure for the risk application. So I have the risk name, and you can see we have specific statuses and so forth, drop-down menus. You can see that we can provide weighting. So those weightings, like consequence and likelihood, they have weightings associated with them. So that way we can actually calculate some sort of risk magnitude, etc. So categories. So all of these drop downs, everything's completely configurable. We can select whether this is going to be a program level risk or not, and that will trigger, a little trigger there that will make this a program level risk. So, for example, when you look at the program level workspace, or when you run a program status report, this risk will definitely be included because it's been triggered at program level risk. Etc. And again, that's completely configurable. So we can capture any information you want here. Very easy to do. So any questions on the project level stuff so far? I'm just conscious of time. There's about 15 minutes left, and I want to get into some dashboards and reporting. Okay,
I've probably got. I'll tell you what my questions are, and you can figure out when you want to hit them. But one would be the assignment of resources in the schedule at the project level. Does that get, or can that be sent for approval rather than just happening? Would be one question. Another one is this is sort of a little bit different. Customer access. So we've got, obviously, our people would be accessing the system, but we might have customer side people as well. Do you handle that any differently? And lastly, I was just going to ask about multiple currencies as well.
Yep. Okay. No problem. Okay. So, firstly, with the resource question, yes, everything can be routed for approval. So, if we go back to this resource application, the resource plan, what you'll see here, just at the top of the application, is there is a submit request button. It's grayed out at the moment because we don't have any new requirements. So whether you're there it is. So we actually do. So I can submit these for requests. So whether you're creating your resource requirements directly from here, which is obviously a more top-down approach, or whether you're doing it at the task level in the WBS, which will automatically be brought into here, they can all be submitted for request from here. And that will shoot off the relevant request to the relevant resource managers for approval. And as I showed you earlier, that team manager tab, that is where the resource managers will go ahead and try to, obviously, give those resources to the relevant managers.
Okay.
So yeah, so it just depends on how you set up the solution. The solution can be set up to have multiple resource managers. You can have one central resource manager. You can have things just automatically get approved, which we don't recommend, but kind of to each their own. There's the strength of Daptiv is the fact that it's highly configurable, which lets us really obviously provide the solution not only to large multinationals but also smaller organizations which may not have the advanced project management methodologies and processes. But we through the configuration we can actually support those different types of organizations. Now, in terms of your second question, which was sorry, your users were your third question, right? In terms of user access.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? Your second question? Yep.
Yep.
We definitely support external users, and it's just a matter of what kind of functionality your external users will require. So, a lot of, like I showed you, a lot of the different areas of Daptiv can actually be set up as web forms. So if you have external consultants, that need to provide information to Daptiv, they can do so through web forms. Now, if they actually need to access information in Daptiv, then they're going to require a license. So it really depends on how much access and control those external resources are going to require.
Yep.
But we do support both internal and external resources. So that's not a problem. And you'll have to excuse me, but I forgot your third question.
Currencies, multiple currencies.
Multiple currencies, that was it. Excuse me. So we don't natively support multiple currencies, but there have been ways around it. So, for example, when you set up a project, you'll have to specify a base currency.
Mm-hmm.
Now for multiple currencies, we can set up something like this. Obviously, an application very similar to what, let's say, the benefits plan is that I just clicked on. We can set up a register for a project that will use multi-currency, and that multi-currency register will be here. It'll have the different currencies and exchange rates, and that can be calculated over. And we do support multi-currency at the reporting layer. So if you need reports with multi-currency, our reporting engine is actually quite strong, and that definitely supports multi-currency. But live multi-currency in the solution is currently not supported. I know it's something we're looking into, but it's currently not supported directly. There are ways around it with workarounds. We have done it before, but it's not something that would come out of the box, for example.
Yeah. Okay.
Any more questions before I move on to the dashboards and reporting? No? Excellent.
I just thought I'd squeak those in so you could carry on.
No, of course. Very good. Excellent. All right. So we talked about the first level of reporting, which would be the views. Now we can talk about a bit more advanced reporting here. So with the dashboards, what this allows you to do is set up, I guess you could say, well, set up dashboards with very relevant information. So you can see from the drop down here, I've set up a number of dashboards based on the relevant stakeholders that would need to access that information. So we have portfolio level dashboards where we can, optimize and analyze the portfolio. We have resource level dashboards where we can, plan our resources and look at utilization and consumption. We have financial level dashboards, etc. Now with these dashboards, they're very powerful. So this is a portfolio level dashboard we're looking at here. This allows me to configure obviously very nice graphical representations of my portfolio. It allows me to slice and dice the information. So right now we're looking at the portfolio. We're analyzing the portfolio by business unit, but I may want to analyze it by program, and I can just click on that drop down, and now the analysis will run again, and all this information will be live. All the data is live, but now I'm analyzing the portfolio from a program perspective. And now what this really does is it provides a bit of flexibility for the users. And what we tend to find is with our more mature PMOs, they'll start to utilize the dashboards for the different reporting and presentation requirements. So they'll get away from the static, PDF or PowerPoint reporting, and they'll start to use these live dashboards that they can drill through and they can change information on the fly. So, if we're in a management meeting and I get a question about, our investment class performance, I can go ahead and switch this view to investment class, and I can see how our 3 different investment classes, which are growing, running, and transforming the business, are performing without having to ask for another report to be made up quickly. So it really provides that flexibility. And of course, you can see there's links all through this report. So we do have that drill down capability. You have the ability to run reports from this report. So if for example, on the right-hand side, you'll see this allocated resources graph. If something doesn't look right with this resource, let's say this developer role is very large here, I can click on that, and you can see that's going to jump into a new screen, and that's going to actually run a resource utilization report for that developer role. So now I've drilled through not only into project information, but I've ran another report from that report. So quite a lot of flexibility there into how you can analyze and digest information.
Yep.
And of course, you can get all those, set up as many dashboards as you'd like. And not only graphical dashboards. So if I click on this productivity dashboard, we saw an example where we logged in as that analyst. We can have very tabular information. So for example, as a user, when I log in, I'm going to want to know my notifications. I'm going to want to know any recent items that have to be brought to my attention, etc. And this is information I'm going to need to know on a daily basis. So this is one way the system notifies you of things that have happened maybe when you've been away from the system.
Yep.
And again, with the power of our reporting of our business intelligence suite, we can not only report on information that's obviously sits natively in Daptiv, but anything we're actually integrated with. So for example, I have an example here of a service management dashboard. So obviously, Daptiv is not a service management solution. We're not a help desk solution. However, through integration, we can still provide these very nice actionable reports for executives. So we can truly be, I guess you could say, a single source of truth for reporting and information just through integration. So our reports are really quite comprehensive, and we can do that. And we also have the ability here. You can see this publish to role. If I'm a project manager and I create a dashboard that's very useful, I can publish that to the role, to different roles, and that'll ask me, what roles do you want to publish this information to? Do you want other project managers to have access to it, or who do you want to have access to this dashboard? So you can go ahead and do that as well.
Yep.
So that's really, I'm just conscious of time. That's really, I guess, an end-to-end snapshot of Daptiv. You know, we've just really touched on the tip of the iceberg here. You know, I can spend an hour demoing specific functionality like the resource management capability if I had the opportunity. So you know, if you again come across any questions later at a later time, you know, feel free to ask those, and I'll make sure we get the relevant answers to you. But do you have any other last minute questions?
Yeah, I guess the last thing I would ask is what sort of APIs and integrations do you support? Because I guess we'd like to capture time here, again, tasks and projects, but feed that back through to our back-end finance system for billing.
Yeah, sure. That actually happens quite a lot. So we offer integration as a service. So we don't have any open APIs at the moment. We're looking into opening them up, but they're all closed APIs. And we offer what's called integration as a service. So if we don't already have the information, the integration pre-built, which we have, I think, over 150 pre-built integrations for a lot of the industry best practice solutions, not only will we build it from scratch, but we will support it and we will maintain it from both ends. So if you know, if Daptiv has a major update, you know, we'll support that for the integration, or if the third-party solution has a major update, we'll make sure that, you know, everything still runs smoothly and is fully supported on both ends.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So yeah, so you know, and it's a very, I guess, well packaged integration solution, but you know, we haven't really come across anything we haven't been able to integrate with, and we cover obviously all the major enterprise class software. We can you know, we can integrate with SAP and tons of other different I guess you could say common solutions. So and I think if you're very interested, we can provide a list for you as well of some of the out of the box ones that we have, and it's really quite comprehensive.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Well, I think it looks really good. Yeah, some definite strengths there around the resource management and the ideation and the requests up front. Liking that a lot. Probably would like to dig further into how we slice and dice from a business perspective, our business lines or our business units versus customer views of things. But otherwise, yeah, it's looking pretty good.
Excellent. Mark, did you want to add anything before we wrap this up?
No, I mean, obviously there's a fair bit to digest, and like I said, you'll probably come up with more questions and more queries as to how you can deep dive on the info. But by all means, come back out if you want some more clarification on things, and if it gets to the point where you're wanting to see some specific scenarios or use cases play out, then you know, you can feed us some information, and we can structure those and play them back to you as well.
Cool, sounds good. So you don't offer a hands-on trial, I assume?
We can do, yep. And you know, we're sort of more than happy to do that now that you've had a look on it. And we do like to keep fairly good control of it. You know, preferably we have, you know, just 30-minute weekly catch-ups, just so you know, if you have any stumbling blocks or questions and things, we address those in one go and keep you moving throughout that trial. So we can do that. It's filled with demo data, so you can actually go in and see things, but then you've certainly got the capability to create your own projects and you know, upload a schedule, or we can create any of those dynamic applications like Alex has been talking about, and just so you can see some actual, you know, real life information from your side, as well as, you know, fully populated projects that are already there.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Sounds good. All right, so from my perspective, I'll catch up with my colleague who was going to be here, and just talk about our next steps. We're obviously looking at more than one product. It's still fairly early days, just to see what's out there, what's available. And I guess it's giving us a good view of what we could do, and therefore we need to look at prioritising our requirements and what we consider to be the most useful or valuable stuff. So doing that, and then I guess building up a bit of a business case. So we'll probably need to talk numbers at some point as well.
Yep.
And then we'll probably need to bring some others in to show the systems that we're looking at in a bit more detail.
All right, sounds good. Well, I might, just when I send that information through, we've got a good document called the PPM Buyer's Guide, which can sometimes help you populate some of those requirements around, and you'll understand if total areas aren't relevant, but they're fairly generic statements that populate, resource management, demand management,
yep,
project management, etc. So that can sometimes help you with at least a starting point, rather than reinventing the wheel.
That's great.
So
no, that's great.
So I'll send you that. I'll just upload this recording to our YouTube thing and just send you the link so you can pass that on and get your colleague who missed it to look at it as you before you deal with him. All right.
Cool. Sounds good.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, everyone.
All right. Cheers.
Okay.
We'll speak later.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.